This was not a good summer.
Yeah, but the end of summer means
hockey season.
No more golf is where I was going to go with that.
Well, we got a couple more weekends.
I played a lot of golf this summer.
I
was very happy with my game. I brought it right back to where I want it to be. But
I started late, and then I got addicted again, and I really enjoyed it. But now I'm going to play through the winter because I started late. So.
I shot my best round the first round of the year, and I haven't been able to match it since.
What's your best round? What do you shoot?
Well, best round of the year was 89 this year. My best round's an 85.
I shot an 85 this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm consistently now like low 80s.
Oh, nice.
Like I'm getting there. That's my next plateau is to get under the 80s and get in the 70s.
Well, maybe we should talk some hockey, some Canucks hockey. What do you think?
I'm into it.
Now a long pass to Pavel Bure in the clear right in. Yeah, he scores! Pavel Bure has won it in overtime. Pavel Bure's puck back in, can't hold it, has it. Flips it, Burrow steals, cutting in, shoots, scores! They've slain the Dragon.
All right, guys, what do you think of the intro?
That was great.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's way better. Season 2 starting off right.
That's right. Season 2, episode 1 of Towel Power, the podcast, the Canucks fan podcast. I'm Shaheed. This is Toast. And I say this is Toast, or Anthony, because I'm pointing at him because we're recording video on season 2 as well. So a lot of newness, but Anthony DiTosto to my left, and then further to my left, Zameer Karim.
Hey.
This is becoming a regularity, which is interesting. I started the podcast a year ago, or just under a year ago, not knowing who I was going to talk to every week. And we talked about this in the summer episode, in the off-season episode. Toast was joining full-time this year, which is awesome. I know I'm going to talk to you a lot. And Zam, you're suddenly back home for a little while, so we're going to talk to you.
For now, yeah. As long as I'm here, I'm happy to come hang out and for us to do this. I had a ton of fun doing the episodes that we did in season 1, and I'm looking forward to season 2. Looking forward to being back in an actual time zone where I can watch the Canucks games at a decent hour.
Yeah, that's nice. Time change might change. I mean, the time, what is it? What's daylight saving time called? What would we categorize that as?
Just daylight savings time?
Anyways, that might change, and that might change the times of Canucks games here.
I guess, but it requires, for them to change daylight savings times back to, or to keep it at daylight savings time, they also need California, Oregon, and Washington State all to agree. So the likelihood of that, all 4 of those jurisdictions coming together, very unlikely. I don't think it's happening.
I'm starting to realize why you guys put me in the middle. Because now I have to look both ways.
And I was going to say, this has been a very Canucky podcast so far. We have not mentioned the Canucks just yet, but the intro. Let's get back to the intro. Mm-hmm. Brown to Bure, classic goal from our generation for sure. I mean, early in our generation. And then we had Burrows slaying the Dragon.
At the end of our generation?
Maybe the end of that generation of team. But that was the intro I was going to use for the podcast last year from day one. I decided to go without clips. I was trying to be professional and not use clips that I didn't own and all that jazz. And I listened to a couple other Canucks fan podcasts prior to our episode today. And everyone's using them. And it's so much more fun to use them. So I use them, but I think we should probably update that one. Mm-hmm. Any suggestions what we should include there in the intro for the season 2 episodes? Should we leave any of those clips? Should we replace them with something? What do you think?
We got to find a PD clip of at least one, or I guess a PD clip would be probably appropriate.
There's about 150 of them, so we could. I think
39 of them, right?
That Pettersson pass to Boeser. I don't know what that sounded like. Play by play, but that incredible play. So maybe that.
Shorty or Batch or Dave Randorf.
Not Bachelor.
Okay. Sorry, Brendan. You're not listening, but sorry. Yeah. What about you?
I would go Shorthouse. Shorthouse is the voice of Vancouver Canucks.
Are there many Houston Canuck clips out there of recent? Of recent, yeah. I don't think so.
Maybe they have 3 games when
have they beat the Leafs recently?
That would be it, right? Like
Oh, Levo scored against the Leafs? That must have been a Houston call.
Yeah, that would have been a Houston call.
I'm not using that one though.
But
I don't know. He says fires the shot a lot, so maybe we could find one of those clips.
Yeah.
We'll just have that repeating. Fires the shot.
Well, if we want good Jim Houston clips, then we're looking back to the era of yesteryear, back to the Bure, Linden, those days.
So I say we keep the Brown to Bure because I love that clip, and then go with a PD clip of some sort. What What do you think?
Yes.
Good?
Yep.
Okay, so Season 2, Episode 1, and I think you had suggested this, Toast, in the off-season that we start to call these seasons. Last season, we didn't call it season. It was just episode 10 or 11 or 12. But Season 2, Episode 1, I like the sound of it because we're starting the season. We're in September, almost in October, and almost at a new Canucks season. So we're calling this Season 2, Episode 1, and we've got a little bit of a new structure, at least for this episode. You also suggested coming on board full-time with a lot of great ideas that maybe we introduce some new segments, and we haven't really talked much about what that might look or sound like, but we're trying out 5 of them, or maybe 4 of them today. What we're going to talk about is the latest. So you might be able to guess that that's sort of the latest news with the Canucks, the topic of the day. Then we're going to move on to a specific topic that we've all decided on, or one of us has decided on today to talk about, that we might dive a little deeper into and spend some time discussing and debating. And then we'll move into waving the towel. Towel power, obviously, based on the Canucks, creating the movement of waving towels in sports, and waving towels to support your team, not the Nielsen version, but the support version. And so waving the towel will be something that we want to cheer for this week. We want to applaud, that we want to spread some positivity towards this show. And that also comes from Toast's suggestion of being positive and supporting the team. And I think we all want to do that. And then finally, question of the week is something we want to answer next week. We want your input. We want to hear opinions. So we're going to not only ask you to email. You don't. We always ask you to email, but you don't. So we're going to put it out on our social channels, Twitter, polls, that kind of stuff.
We had one question once. I'm telling you, put it out on Instagram, and we had one question once.
Right. I remember that.
It was an epic moment for this podcast.
But that was the only time I put anything out on Instagram, and we got a response. So maybe we all do that. Question of the week. We get some answers. We read them next week, we discuss them, and then ask another question. So those are the 4 segments we're going to go this week. Might change next week if we come up with some new ideas, but feedback always welcome. You guys want to get into the latest? Big news today.
Yep, let's do it.
Okay, big news is Brock Boeser is in concussion protocol, whatever that means. I don't know what exactly the details are, except for the fact that he's being monitored for 6 days while he's trying to rehab. And if there are any, steps back, then he has to start that protocol over. He took a hit in a preseason game, which was, I guess, yesterday, as we're recording this, against the Ottawa Senators. Chris Tierney hit him from an awkward spot, 3-4 feet away from the boards, and he went into the boards awkwardly, hit his head in maybe what was less bendy Abbotsford glass and boards, and he is now out of the lineup for at least 6 days, and that brings us to Game 1, October 2nd. So I guess the first question around that is, what did you guys think of the hit?
So I thought it was a bad hit. I thought that hit should have garnered a 5-minute major and a game misconduct. A hit to a player in a vulnerable position. Boeser, Tierney definitely saw his number, and when you see the number, you're generally taught not to hit a player. But I guess it comes down to whether or not Boeser was expected to be turning at that point.
Yeah, I don't think it's about the turn. We watched the clip just before, and I thought that Tierney actually made an effort to go around Boeser and try and hit his shoulder on the other side, on more of the front side. And I think that either Boeser didn't turn as much as he thought, or he just came quicker than he thought. So I almost put that as a justification for giving it only a 2 and not a boarding. The angle that's been floating around Twitter and everywhere, that bad angle looks like it's a checking from behind, just right on the numbers, and looks awful. And I just, I don't know. I think there's another angle out there that we saw that shows that maybe he was actually just trying to get around, and it just ended up being a poor result.
Though I think in those situations, when it is a hit, a questionable hit with a poor result, then you have to then take the result as into account when you assess punishment. In this case, maybe you didn't know that. I don't know. Did Boeser come back into that game?
It's a slippery slope, though, because once you start doing that with those kind of hits and you go, the result has to be, well, what happens if a guy is on a breakaway, he gets tripped, and he flies into the boards head first. You know what I mean? Then you're going, well, I mean, he's got a concussion. He could be out for 2 weeks. Well, that's a 5 in a game. Well, I mean, speed, it's too relative. You're getting to a point where you're now in like the NFL territory where like, well, now all checking from behinds can be reviewed and all that stuff. And I think you just got to leave that as a judgment call from the refs. Like they already had one earlier in the game on Fantenberg, who's also in concussion protocol, on a hit of Swartz, I think we found out was he jumped and hit him in the head, and that was a 2 in a game for that player. So I think you just got to leave it at a judgment call and figure that out from there, because you're headed down too slippery of a slope, and you gotta like think about the general outcome and the further outcome than just switching that rule.
Right, I kind of fall in the middle there. I agree with both of you, and why I agree with both of you is. Because like high sticks, which are very dangerous and, come up in the face and can, damage the eye permanently. The onus is on the player, and he is expected to be responsible for his stick. And if he's not, he gets a double minor, or a 5-minute major or whatever it is. And in this area where a player's turned or turning and he's in that area, that 3-foot area away from the boards, it's super dangerous. It's not necessarily an open ice hit. It's not. I can't think of another play that regularly happens, but those two plays can be so dangerous. I mean, I remember being in Nanaimo watching the Clippers, and a guy got paralyzed in that 4 or 5 foot area. So. I kind of feel like when it's that type of play, the player coming in to check a guy should be responsible for his body. Like if a guy's turning, then you have to adjust, and if you can't adjust, then you're going to get a penalty, and he did. So is a penalty a 2 and a 10 or whatever he got enough?
He got just 2 minutes for that. It was Schwartz on the hit on Fantenberg, right, where it was a 2 and a 10.
Yeah. So. I've always kind of fallen on the side of being stricter on those types of plays just to get it out of the game because it's so dangerous. But I think when it comes down to it, it wasn't a malicious play. I think we can probably all agree on that.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know if, what do you do in that situation? Do you go to a 0 tolerance minimum 4 minutes? What is the punishment? Because you want to say like there should be like a higher responsibility on the player there, but like there's so many plays and it goes so fast out there. We play Div 9 hockey and it seems like it's that fast. Like it's
right, but you don't hit a guy from behind regardless, right? Yeah. Like, and it's like 1 in 10, 1 in 20, 1 in 30. You just don't hit a guy from behind. Like even if you're going into the boards fast and it feels fast for you as a Div 9 player, these guys, it feels probably the same speed for them because they're professionals. So I feel like they do need to be responsible. And it goes back to what Brian Burke was saying years ago, is that if you're going into a corner with a player, you should make it a habit, and players should make it a habit to sort of wrap and pin and not just so when I look at the Tierney hit, what I see is not the result and not Boeser going into the boards hard. It's Tierney gliding in and not making any effort to stop or slow down as he's getting closer, right? So if you're not doing that, there's going to be a problem if the player turns.
It's a tough play because Tierney, you want to talk about the wrap and pin or whatever. Well, in today's NHL, that's probably a hold. You know what I mean? Well, it's going to be a penalty for him. So he comes, like I said, we watched the clip before, me and Zam, and I can see the fact that he's trying to get around. And I think that it just happened really fast, and he just thought, I legitimately think in his mind, he thought he was just giving him like a shove, and Boeser was caught off guard. He didn't see him coming. Like if Boeser turns his head over his shoulder there and sees him coming and he braces himself, that is no more than a push. I'm guaranteeing you that.
Sure. Yeah.
With no doubt. If he sees him coming, there's no doubt. I'm not saying it's not a penalty. It is a penalty, and he needs to get penalized for it. I just think that there's a reason the refs only gave him 2 for that play, because I think they're seeing what I saw.
It sounds to me like you're giving putting more of the onus on Brock Boeser there, right? Like if he sees him, if he stands his ground a little bit, it doesn't end up the way it is, and that allows Chris Tierney to just go in there at full speed without adjusting. And you said he maybe tried to adjust, but when I'm thinking of defending, like defending is getting in there, getting stuck, but being responsible for what you do. And if you're not responsible, you get a penalty. I don't think the punishment was enough. Do I think he should be suspended? I'm not sure. I think a 5 in a game would have been plenty, and it probably wouldn't need much more than a 5 in a game, because it didn't seem malicious. And like you said, he did look like he was trying to get out of the way potentially. Fact of the matter is, he still boarded a guy. Guy went in hard, and that's more than 2 minutes in my mind. But it's just unfortunate that, like you said, Boeser maybe didn't see it coming, and it ended up being a bit more serious than it should have been, probably.
I know that it sounds like I'm putting all the onus on Brock, and maybe I am. And I know this is a Canucks podcast. We probably shouldn't be
No, go ahead. Be honest.
bashing.
They're
Canucks
not sponsoring it.
But I do think that the onus does have to be on the receiving player as well. And I this sounds
if you don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
It sounds so like victim blaming almost, like, oh, he got hit that way, it's his fault. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm just saying, like, there are situations you put yourself in and you find more and more. I don't know if it's just because the game has changed where there is less hitting and there's less like chance of an open ice hit or anything. I think that players are taking less onus on themselves to defend themselves than they used to. They turn their back because they know that if they get hit, there's going to be a penalty. They're going to draw a penalty. And I think that there just needs to be an onus on the player as well. Like you can't just blindly turn your back. When I grew up playing hockey, I went to hitting school, as everybody did when were about to get into hitting, and they taught you, like, when you get into that zone, be aware of your surroundings. He needs to be aware of his surroundings.
I totally agree with you, and I think Brock Boeser could have avoided injury if he did everything that you were saying, and I'm the same way. I don't ever go into the boards without thinking I'm going to get crushed. I'm a little guy. I always got crushed, so there's no way I wouldn't think. It's weird that it was a penalty kill, but at the same time, I just expect it, and there is onus on him to protect himself so that he doesn't get hurt. But I think there should be equal parts onus, and I don't see Chris Tierney letting up when there's a back to him. And that to me is against the rules. So they both need to have onus, one to not get injured and the other guy to not injure a guy and get a major penalty. And I think it should have been a major penalty, but it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that Brock Boeser gets hurt after 2 preseason games and starting camp late. And he if everything goes well, he's out of concussion protocol the day before the opener. You would assume that if everything goes well, he'll still be skating a couple days before at least, and might practice with the team. But how do you think it should be handled? Overcautious? If there's any sign of anything, you hold him out, or is it the season that we're looking at? Is every game so important that if he can practice, he can play?
Well, if we've learned anything over the last 2 years, the beginning of the season for us means nothing, because we keep starting off so hot and everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to make the playoffs. And then there comes that 10-game losing streak or 10-game, winless streak that is so common now in the NHL because of overtime and stuff like that. You can't really. So I don't know. I want them to be cautious, but at the same time, like, if he's ready to go, you can't hold him out.
Yeah, I would say be more cautious. The first month of the season is not nearly as important as...
the first month of the season is not nearly important. The Canucks missed the playoffs by, like, how many points?
10,
if you
points.
throw the first month, you're 20 points out now, right?
But they're not going to lose every game without Boeser. Yes, but not saying to sacrifice a month of the season just to hold Boeser out. But you can take a little bit more of a cautious approach. And you have good players as long as you have Pettersson, and hopefully he doesn't get injured again. Horvat, hopefully he is just as good as he was last year, better than last year. Maybe they can tread water for 3 or 4 games if they need to hold out Boeser to make sure that he's 100% before getting back on the ice. He's had some groin problems. He's had some other injury issues, and he's the guy. You want him, along with Elias Pettersson, you want Boeser to be getting somewhere around 60, 65, 70 points. And if he's going to be chronically injured, then it's not going to do anybody good in the long term.
The question I have before we get to game one is how, as a Canucks organization, do you let Brock Boeser finish that game in a meaningless preseason game? Because even if he felt fine after that, I mean, you got to just take and figure out what it is. If this is game 82 and you're fighting for a playoff spot, he finishes that game.
Well, it's interesting. You know, obviously him starting camp late probably plays into that decision, and he might be saying he's fine. But with all that in mind, the exact same thing, not the same injury, but happened to Quinn Hughes a couple games before, and they took him out. They didn't play him. So it's like they knew what they should have done, but didn't do it. And yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. And in terms of, you know, whether he felt good or not, I think that does probably play a large factor in it. They maybe probably did think of bringing him out and asked him how he felt, and he probably said he felt fine, and then started to feel whatever he was feeling after the game. I don't know how concussion protocol works. Is it if the team notices something, or if the player says something, or does it matter?
Yeah, I don't know because I know the NFL has like an outside spotter that takes people out and says that.
The NHL has that in the regular season too. Mm-hmm. They have spotters.
I don't know. Regardless, competitors, especially since he's had short amount of time in this preseason, competitors are always going to say they're fine.
Yeah.
In the moment. So like you can't listen to them in the moment. I don't know if any of you have had a concussion. I've had a concussion.
I've had many.
Definitely. Yeah. And in the I kept playing. Like I didn't even think about it. I just was like, no, I'm playing. It's fine. Yeah. Right? That would never happen
that
now.
That fog is just mist on the ice.
Yeah, like
it wasn't there before, but so a person's going to keep playing. Like they're just they get to that level for a reason, and he's going to keep playing. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's too bad that the team can't. Or maybe they will, but there's a chance that they won't start the season completely healthy, especially after they signed him. And it could have been a lot worse if they didn't sign him, right? So we'll see what happens. I heard a funny comment this morning or this afternoon that there was so much hype in the offseason about the potential of the Ferland, Boeser, and Pettersson line. And we still haven't seen that line take a shift together because, Michael Ferland has been sick and Boeser was late to camp. And so we still might not see them until the regular season. But we'll see. Anything else on Boeser that you guys want to mention?
Well, it's funny. The talk coming into yesterday and what we were texting back and forth about was Boeser's new contract. And a day later, that's really old news. And now we're talking about his injury.
Yeah, do you want to talk about the contract? Any comments there? I mean, it is kind of old news at this point. He's there, and he's made recent headlines. So if you guys want to talk about it, feel free. I'm just happy he's there.
Yeah, I thought it was good for both sides. Honestly, I thought it was a great deal. And it just, everything now with point signing too, it just makes the Leafs look stupid. And it's great.
Yeah, I like what I'm hearing from Boeser about wanting to stick around, and I believe it. I think he wants to be here long term. The only thing is that you just never know. You never know what's going to happen next year, the year after. You never know how a guy's going to feel, how his life is going to change, and having only that 3-year deal, it just leaves. I mean, obviously he'll be an RFA at the end of those 3 years, but if they're not able to sign him to a long-term deal, then it gets really dicey. So it would have been nice to have a long-term deal, and there's so much speculation about what went into it and what went into not getting a long-term deal, and a guy named Louis might have something to do with that. But no. Yeah. So it's unfortunate from that regard that it would have been nice to have a longer-term deal and have him locked up. But
which Louis?
Oh yeah,
one or both.
Yeah, a guy's named Louis. Sounds like a new sitcom.
Yeah. And am I the only one that thinks that
about two guys getting paid to do nothing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. Ericsson's been doing pretty well in the preseason here.
Yeah. But that's the problem. He's doing well in the preseason. As soon as game one hits, he's going to put the puck in his own net again.
Yeah, it's not a problem yet. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see if it becomes a problem. Let's move on. Let's get into our. We don't really have a name for this segment, but the focus of the episode, let's say, and that's training camp, preseason, what we've noticed, what we've taken away so far, and what we can potentially project into the regular season. We're a week away from the first game of the regular season, the Canucks and the Oilers, Wednesday, October 2nd. I'm so pumped for it. A little less pumped now that Boeser's injured, but there's been so much that has happened in this preseason. And I think maybe the biggest headline outside of Boeser not being there and them needing to get his contract done ahead of the season and him missing the start of training camp was the fact that there were so many forwards going into training camp and how that all was going to shake out. How do you think it has played out so far with regards to the forwards, and any surprises to you guys or any disappointments forward-wise? Sam? Have you watched any preseason games? Let's be honest here.
No,
I don't want to pretend we're pros here. We're not a TSN 1040, Sportsnet, whatever. And there's some really good Canucks fan podcasts. These guys are diehards, watch every minute of every game and every practice and see every tweet and read every athletic article. And I do a lot of that. But I'm going to take a guess and say you haven't seen much of the preseason.
Have you?
I've seen more than last year.
You've probably seen. You've definitely seen more than me.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Toast? How many preseason games have you seen?
I've watched about a period.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right.
I think I watched about.
Okay. So that's why I wanted to get it out there. I wanted to make sure we're not making up on the podcast. That's not who we are. We're just guys following the team as best as we can, and we have our opinions.
I would like to think that this is like a podcast of the every fan. You know what I mean? Like we're not those diehards. Like we do what
we want to be, but we have other shit going on. I said shit.
Once the regular season starts, we watch, I would say, as a general 90-95% of the games. We'll watch them. Mm-hmm. We'll text each other. We'll do that stuff during games, and then we'll chat about what we're going to do later. But we're not out there at the preseason game in Abbotsford and Victoria and going to watch these games and breaking down every move. We're just here like every other fan that is a Canucks fan but doesn't have all the time in the world to do so.
And that's the thing, because since the Pettersson emergence last season, I've been so pumped to watch this team, and I've wanted to follow it like I did when I was a kid and a teenager and even in university, like following every moment and just getting as deep into it as I can. But like you said, we just have other stuff going on. It's impossible. I've got 2 kids and somewhat of a job or looking for a job or whatever you want to call it.
So if anybody's hiring, there's 2 of us that are looking for work here.
Brought to you by ZipRecruiter.
We need to get them a
We should give them a call. Indeed. I've spent a lot of time on Indeed recently too.
Please don't sue us.
Yeah. But I've wanted to spend that time and I just can't. But I have spent more time than I have in previous years, which is nice. And I have watched quite a bit of the preseason, not the games that were streaming and not televised. And I did want to go to the Abbotsford game, but it was way too pricey.
Yeah,
and
we were thinking.
I tried to go to Victoria, but nobody wanted to come with me. So you guys speak for yourselves, okay?
I don't know. I've just moved from Montreal. My life has been in a bit of a. Lots been going on. Okay. So
what is my excuse? I don't have kids. I didn't just move. Yeah. What am I doing? Yeah. I should be watching these games.
Elaborate,
Sorry,
please.
boys.
Yeah. Well, you play like 47 sports. That's your excuse.
Yeah, it's been too much actually. I need to cut down. I recently started fall ball in slow pitch. I don't know why. I'm playing volleyball now. I don't know what's going on. But I mean it's. I love playing sports. I love following the Canucks.
Well, here's the thing. If I had the decision in April to be out on the golf course in the sun or watching the Masters, I'm going to be outside playing golf and I'm going to PVR the Masters or whatever it is. Like, that's just the decision I'm going to make every time. So what about the Vikings? Are you going to miss a Vikings game?
No.
There's only like 18 of them. So.
Yeah, I only get, they don't ever do well in the playoffs. So I get 16 games a year. That's it. I'm going to watch them.
Right. Okay. So back to training camp, preseason, the forwards. I guess the question then is, and we have this as a part of our lineup here. What do you expect to happen, or what do you want to happen? Because maybe you can't speak to what you expect to happen if you haven't seen much of the performances. What do you want to happen with the forward lineup? Because there's so many options, so many potential combinations. What do you want? What do you want to see come Wednesday?
Well, looking at the preseason box scores that I've been looking at after the games,
That's a wicked disclaimer.
The last 3 games, the goals. There was a tweet by Jeff Patterson saying, like, the last 3 games have been 6-5 and 6. Like, that's amazing. And then I forget what Canucks Twitter follower said it, but last preseason it was like 2-1, 2-3-1. There's been no 1-goal preseason games, and yes, it's the preseason, but it's just nice to see them putting the puck in the net.
There were 10 goals last preseason, and there's been 27 for the Canucks so far.
So that right there is a positive, that we are putting the puck in the net, because as much as you need good goaltending, good defense, you can't be relying on that to get you through games. You can't get up 2-1 and go, okay, let's sit back. You can't be down 2-1 and be like, oh no, we're screwed. Like, you know what I mean? So seeing that there's goals has been great.
Yeah, Zam.
Yeah, agreed.
Goals are good. Goals are good. We all agree.
We all like goals, and it's nice to see that that the Canucks are finally. Well, it's just a preseason, so
yeah,
it's good to see that they're able to put the puck in the net hopefully better than last year. And really, the real season starts on October 3rd is game 1.
October 2nd.
October 2nd, game 1, and I'm excited. I'm kind of ready for the regular season start.
Okay, so let me pinpoint a specific forward. Mm-hmm. Now that Brock Boeser is injured, and there's a gaping hole on the right wing potentially, game 1, or if he were to get injured again or whatever, what do the Canucks do with Nikolai Goldobin? Because by all accounts, and certainly the games that I saw, but by all accounts it seems he has not been good again in the preseason. He's named Jeff Patterson today used the phrase that he was searching hard to find Goldobin yesterday, and he couldn't find him on the ice. Or Ian McIntyre, somebody said it, maybe more than one person said it, but he's been less than impressive in a training camp that I think they all really wanted him to come out and be impressive in one way or another, whether it was offensively or work ethic wise or whatever. So it doesn't seem like that's happening, and he is one of those extra forwards there. Do they keep him along, scratch him like they did last year, fill him in an offensive role when they have a hole? Or is that just not the way this team wants to go this year, or not the way you want them to go this year? Because there are so many other bodies now.
The problem is, what's your alternative? Like, I
reward guys, right? Like,
Yeah.
you remember the days when a guy got rewarded for playing well and he got moved up the lineup?
What are you going to put Tyler Mott up on the top line because he played well on the fourth line? Like, I don't understand where we're going to go with this. Like, you got to sub out skilled players for skilled players. People earn rewards in their role. Like, I think that you need to stay within people's skill set. I think if you're starting to think, okay, well, we'll just spot Schaller up on the top line, or what's going to end up happening. They're going to put up Furland or whatever in Boeser's spot or whoever, and then they're going to put Schaller with Bo, and then the whole argument starts again on, look at Bo and his crappy wingers. You know what I mean? So I think that Goldobin, although he might not be as good as advertised, he at least has the chance to put the puck in the net.
Okay, so let me pull this up here. Chris Faber, who is of the Canucks Army online, a writer and host of Canucks Conversation. I listened to it for the first time a couple days ago. Really good podcast. He got to go to training camp this year for the first time, and that's cool. But he was tweeting yesterday, about the combination of Elias Pettersson and Nikolai Goldobin. And stats from last season suggest that it's better to have him there than not to have him there. So in 54 games played, when Pettersson and Goldobin were on the ice together, they produced 3.38 goals per 60 minutes and let in 1.5. And this is for the analytics crowd. I don't usually dive into this stuff, but it was interesting when I read it. Pettersson without Goldobin in 71 games and double the ice time almost, he only produced 2.6 goals per 60 and let in 3.5 goals. So 2 more goals without Goldobin. I mean, those are quite telling stats. And then there was another stat there. Pettersson and Goldobin produced 20 goals for and 9 goals against together in those 54 games. And without Goldobin, Pettersson had 27 in 71 games and 36 against. Like, the numbers are really, really clear. It's just that eye test, that sniff test, the smell test, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't look good when Goldobin's missing so often. But can you argue against these numbers?
No, it's pretty obvious that Goldobin does make the Canucks a better team, but maybe he turns out to be, he's one of those Allen Iverson put it, practice?
What's that? What do you mean by that?
Like, we can see in games, Nikolai Goldobin is a good player. We saw that when he first...
If it was that clear, there wouldn't be so much discussion about whether he fits on the team, though.
But then, where's he been in the preseason? He's played a little bit in the preseason. I don't believe he played last night, and he wasn't even on the practice lines today.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I don't know. And coming into the season, they weren't happy with his conditioning again.
Is that right?
If I remember correctly, him and obviously Virtanen, they weren't happy with either of their conditioning. Or Green said he expected Goldobin to do more
in the offseason.
In the offseason. So yes, but who knows? But like, there are guys that are physically larger that move around the ice a little differently, that require that are sometimes are not as good in practice as they are in the game, and they are just able to put in a different gear when it comes to game time.
So you're expecting him to be better in the regular season, is what you're saying?
I would think so. Maybe you give him 10 or 15 games, especially if Brock Boeser is going to start the season on the injured list. Then you put Goldobin in that situation, and hopefully, for Goldobin's sake, that he's able to show what these numbers show.
Toast, you want Goldobin on Pettersson's wing if Boeser's not there?
I think that's the only spot for him.
Yeah.
I'd rather him on that line than a Mott or a Schaller.
Well, it's going to be Levo, it seems. Yeah. Levo and Ferland. That doesn't seem like a first line to me.
There is certain people that just move well with certain people, and I feel like Goldobin and Pettersson have a chemistry there that is seen. We have seen the eye test there. Like, people have seen that in action. And it seems to be, to me and to a lot of people, that when he's not with Pettersson, he seems to not be as noticed.
Yep. So where does he go then when he's not with Pettersson? Because
Utica.
They're going to try Ferland and Boeser with Pettersson.
Just sit him.
Yeah.
Just sit him. Everything has shown that people are going to get injured this year.
Yeah.
Everything. So when there's a chance, when he has to be slotted in the lineup, find other places for other guys who can play all around the lineup and keep him with Pettersson. If he plays 15 games with Pettersson and they get 5-6 goals there and they only have 2 against, then what's the issue? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. You're not going to get the production from him, Pettersson and Boeser together. You're not going to get that production, but you're at least going to get better production than putting him somewhere else in the lineup where he either doesn't feel comfortable or he just doesn't perform as well when he's not with highly skilled players, which unfortunately is a bad quality, but you have him here. Let's use him.
Okay. Any other observations or thoughts from preseason, or maybe thoughts ahead of the regular season?
I'm still annoyed that Louis Eriksson is still on this roster.
Okay, so let's talk about Louis Eriksson. There, it looks like there's 4 guys for 2 spots at the end of the day, and 2 guys have to move somehow. Maybe not with the injuries, but if everyone's healthy, is Louis Eriksson in the lineup, or is he in Utica?
Him and Tim Schaller shouldn't be. They're better.
Those are the 2 guys?
They're better players than those 2 guys. Obviously, Ferland being one of them and Goldobin being the other.
Yeah, I mean, Ferland's not in question. So
No, definitely not. But he was skating as a 13th forward today.
Yeah, he just came off of illness. He had 3 days of vomit and diarrhea, I'm sure. So, okay, so we're talking about Tyler Mott. We're talking about Louis Eriksson. We're talking about who did you just mention right now? Tim Schaller. And who's the 4th guy we're thinking of here? That's and Goldobin. Goldobin. Those are the 4 for potentially 2 spots when everyone's healthy. The only player that can be sent down through waivers is Gaudette. So are you expecting him to get sent down?
From all of what Twitter says, he's had about one period of good hockey in the preseason. So
yeah, and people are both Travis Green and Twitter are harsh on Gaudette because as Travis Green said, and maybe he hasn't been harsh recently. Like he seems like a guy trying to make the team, and can't say that about a lot of the other guys in the bottom six. And like the guy is so young and still showing that there are flashes of really good hockey. Like I don't think anybody has put together a really good 60. Like yesterday, maybe a different story, but I think people are being quite harsh on Gaudette when like he's produced a couple goals, which is nice. He's getting stuck in the play in the corners. Puck battle's good. He's skating well. Like I just don't understand why it's so harsh on Gaudette. Maybe the analytics crowd knows a bit more than I do, but there's others that I haven't noticed as much as him. He certainly falls higher on the totem pole based on his preseason performance than some other forwards.
I think part of that is circumstantial on his contract, right? He's the only one that can be sent down without waivers. So before you think of anybody else, he's at the top of that list. So you have to be really sure that you want him on your roster because you're going to have to put 3 other people down or bury them or something, you know what I mean? So I think that puts him at the top of the chart of going down. So that's what I'm saying. Like I think that people are a lot more harsh on him because it's like, well, he has to do exceptionally well or we have to send him down.
Yeah, we got to get back on the positivity train, right? Like he's doing well, taking steps, sending down, he's going to grow, whatever.
Yeah, and that's where I come down on it. It is Adam Gaudette's still a young player. Was second year pro, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
It might be third.
He came in at the end of the previous season and then played all of last year.
Yeah,
so
okay.
It was third year.
So third year. So he'll be a third year pro this year. So he's probably 21, 22.
No, he came out of college.
Okay, so 22, 23 years old. We have the internet.
We've got
in front
lots
of us.
internets in front
one
of us.
person talk and one person search. We're on video now. So
he's a young guy that could maybe benefit from a little bit of seasoning in the minors. He's 22.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
he's 23 on October 3rd.
Okay. On the day. Okay. So he's still 23 years old. He's still a young guy. He could benefit from a little bit of seasoning, and then you call him up in the regular season.
Yeah, totally.
And he's one of those players where you don't have to worry about. Obviously, you don't have to worry. He's on a two-way deal, entry-level deal that you can call him up whenever you need to and dump one of those other guys once they have shown that they are not Canucks caliber players or should not be Canucks caliber players.
I think this is a perfect situation where you send him down, he gets a lot of minutes, and if Eriksson struggles in the first 15 games and can't get it done, see you later. And that's the time you make that move.
Or when someone gets injured. Yeah, because it's going to happen.
Well, this is the Canucks.
yeah. I mean, it's already happened. So, yeah. Any other thoughts on preseason? The projected lineup, obviously Pettersson and Horvat down the middle. Sutter looks like he's going to slot in on the third line, has had a decent preseason, and Beagle on the fourth line through the middle. Like we were saying, there's going to be so many changes on the wing that it's probably tough to predict. Is there anything that you want to see out of the defense specifically that you think would be ideal, or are you open to just seeing how it goes?
I think the defenders seem to be in a bit of we know who the defensemen are going to be. It's just a matter of trying to figure out the pairing and the chemistry between the guys. Whether right now they have Hughes and Tanev together, Ben and Stetcher together, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think you want to have a young guy like Hughes with a veteran player like Tyler Myers or
Chris Tanev
is also a veteran player as well. Yeah. But I've always liked the Edler-Tanev combo together or Edler-Stetcher together.
It's funny. I think a lot of people would say if you could finally break them up just because they're both old and injury prone. But with that being said, the pairing will then end up being Edler and Myers. and they're both kind of old. Myers is not really
29,
old yet, but they're certainly there.
33.
One thing that I noticed in the preseason, in the games that I've watched, and I haven't watched all of them, but more so than I can remember, maybe ever, I haven't noticed Alex Edler.
That's a good thing.
And it's brilliant because he was getting too much ice and wasn't able to handle it. And he had a good season last year, decent season, certainly a bounce back season. But I think he's at a point in his career that the less ice, the better. And I didn't notice him, which means he wasn't necessarily making mistakes, but he wasn't necessarily trying to push the play too hard and doing too much, and maybe was getting less ice time. A lot of people, for better or for worse, noticed Tyler Myers yesterday. And I think that's going to be one thing that we'll have to keep an eye on, how much, how much bad we get with the good. But
so like we said, I haven't watched much of the preseason. Does he actually look as tall on the ice as he is? Like, does he look like he is as tall as he is? Because I don't know yet. Yeah,
he looks pretty tall. Yeah, especially when he's paired up with Quinn Hughes, and then he looks super tall. But he looks like a pretty big guy, but he moves, he covers a lot of ground. It doesn't look like he's moving fast, but he gets places, which is good. Couple turnovers yesterday, but that's going to happen, and we're going to see on balance if it ends up being positive or not. But I like the look of Hughes and Myers together when I saw them, but I just think it's a bit too much of a high risk combination. I think it's probably better off starting Hughes and Tanev together because it's just a bit more insulated for Hughes. But man, what I've seen out of Hughes in the preseason has been pretty nice. Like, he's obviously making mistakes, but he just seems so comfortable in how he wants to play and who he is as a player. The defensive zone stuff, like, he's been lost sometimes and he's given the puck away, whatever. That comes with time as a defenseman, and you're going to have to take the bad with the good, I think. It's better having him in the lineup than not. But some of the stuff he does in the offensive zone, at the blue line even, it's unreal. I haven't seen that out of a defenseman on the Canucks really ever. There's flashes of it with certain players, but just all of it in one player. I hope he can stay healthy, because watching him for an entire season is going to be a treat. And I actually want the Canucks to go to overtime, even though I don't want them to lose the overtime games. I want them to go to overtime to be able to see that 3-on-3, because that 3-on-3 with what was it? It was Pettersson, Hughes, and Boeser. Yeah, it was Boeser. It wasn't Horvat. Yeah. Man, that was it.
That was electric.
That was amazing.
That was crazy.
So more of that, please. Okay. Anything else? Do we want to get to waving the towel? I just realized that I hadn't picked what I was going to wave the towel for, but I have now. You guys, you have it in your head?
Yeah.
You know what you're going with? All right. Let's wave the towel for the first time in Towel Power podcast history. Zam, you go first. What are you waving the towel for today?
So I read, I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but the Canucks are going to be naming a captain.
You read that where?
I read that on, I think it was on Canucks.com, actually.
Oh, really? I saw Dan Murphy tweet about it.
Yeah.
He said, by all indications, it sounds like they're going to name a captain.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious who it's going to be.
Is it? Because there's a lot of talk on Twitter.
Dude, if the Canucks Canuck this up, I'm going to be so disappointed.
The thing is that video they put out for the new promo with like big colors.
Yeah.
Bit bright future or whatever.
Yeah.
They have Bo matched up with Linden, right? They and I think that is like a little bit of
That's
like
on purpose.
pre-warning, like this is coming. You know what I mean? Like I don't think they go that way I don't think they go that way with that video if that wasn't going to be the case.
Did you see the picture of the new banners in the?
Yeah.
And then somebody, I think it was the same guy, Chris Faber, zoomed into Horvat's photo, and it looked like there was like a C under his jersey that they maybe are just going to rip off once the season starts, and then they'll have a C under his jersey on one of the banners in the arena.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It's pretty funny.
I'll have to look on Twitter.
It looks like it could be legit, but it could also be just everyone looking into the wrinkles in a jersey. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually what's going on there. They just covered it up until they announce it, and then they're going to rip it off. But I mean, if they don't name Horvat the captain, like that's just going to be a major fail. Like, Pettersson has grown so much in an off season. Like, he seems so much more comfortable and mature in front of the microphone, and like he's hard on himself, but then he's quick to say it's just one game and we'll get better next game. So he's just like he almost seems like a different dude already. But still, that would be a mistake in my mind. It's like Bure. You don't need more pressure to score all the goals because you put all the pressure on yourself anyway. So we all agree. Horvat captain.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Toast. What are you waving the towel for?
I didn't think I'd ever use this person in like applaud nature, but Travis Green is my waving the towel.
Okay.
I think that speaking of Bo Horvat, putting Horvat on that second power play unit has seemed to have done something to the first power play unit that has given them so much confidence. Whether it's Boeser hitting pucks off JT Miller and putting it in the net, or if it's whatever, I think that that's going to be such a good combination on both units, because now you're going to have Bo and Pearson on power play 2, and you're going to have JT Miller, Pettersson, Hughes, Boeser on power play 1, and you're just like, you have one stacked line and one good power play line, not one super stacked line and
just like a fourth line.
Shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's like,
yeah, no, I mean, there's been some interesting decisions, and I like the way Travis Green coaches, and sometimes, in his media scrums, I don't like the way he communicates, and sometimes the decisions, he's a bit stubborn before he does something, but I think he has a real good sense of the X's and O's, but then also a really good sense of what a player is and how to get what he needs out of that player, minus Goldobin. But yeah, you know what? We'll see how much he can squeeze out of this group this year, because lots of expectations. Okay, what am I waving the towel for this week? Feels like a little bit of a cop out, because you could probably say it every week or every show, but I'm gonna wave the towel for Elias Pettersson, and that's because not only did he work hard in the offseason to become a bit more physically mature, but he translated that onto the ice immediately, in that that bag skate, he's leading the pack in a bunch of veterans, slow veterans albeit, but veterans. He's showing that there's no gear but whatever, sixth gear, whatever. I'm not a car guy, so anyway, there's no gear but the fastest gear for him, which sets an example, sets the tone for the team. It's the tone that I'm sure Travis Green wanted set. And then just like as I was saying a couple minutes ago, he seems to have taken on the role of being the face of this franchise in an off season. Like, obviously it was a lot for him the first season. The media was tough for him. He was deer in the headlights a lot of the time, and he tried his best to tread water. But like I said, this preseason, he seems like a guy who's been in the league for 10 years. He knew exactly what was coming, and now nothing can throw him off, especially in the media. Like, obviously he still has some room to grow, but he just seems so much more comfortable and ready and willing to just put the team and the franchise on his shoulders. And we're talking about captaincy. It sounds like I'm talking about a captain, but like I said, he doesn't need any more pressure. He's just going to do it anyway. So it's really amazing to see that this kid in just a matter of months has developed so much more than he had already developed through the season. So I applaud him, and I wave the towel for Elias Pettersson. Okay, last segment of the show, question of the week. We're going to ask you guys, the viewers and listeners, to help us answer a question, and we'll discuss the answers, hopefully, that we get next show, and then we'll talk about what we think about the question as well. Toast, what's the question going to be this week? Do you remember? We talked about it before you came up with it, so you sent it out.
What's the expectation for the season? I think.
What's your expectation?
Yeah, what's your expectation for the season? Admittedly, episode 1, season 2 here, we didn't really, we had to come up with these segments, and we just kind of were like, wait, we need to come up with a question. Yeah, we gotta do that. So, what is your season outcome? What do you think the Canucks are going to do this season? We'll put it up there on our Twitter account that we have, and maybe all of us will throw it on our Instagrams, and we'll see if we get some replies from some listeners. Yeah,
where are they going to end up, and what do you think is going to be the main reason why they're going to end up there? Because so much can happen in a regular season, like injuries and players developing and playing out of their expectations or below their expectations. So a lot can go into it, but maybe where you think the team is going to end up and the main factor contributing to that. And we'll talk about it next week. We're planning to do a show the night before Game 1 and then publish it the morning of Game 1 on October 2nd. So look out for that. And otherwise, how did you guys feel? Season 2, Episode 1. This was fun.
It's good to be back behind the mic.
The bright lights.
Yes.
Yeah, I felt very.
Yeah, that period of hockey really helped you prepare for this one.
Definitely. I was really excited for this season.
Yeah.
No, I thought that went really well. I don't know how I'm going to look on video here. It's going to be pretty interesting. I felt like I closed my eyes a lot, so I'm gonna be interested to watch this.
Well, I was drinking carbonated water, so I was
also
you can
brought
see on
to you
the
by
video.
Western Family Citrus
Western
Twist.
Family. And then I was doing some weird thing with the microphone. I was kind of doing this, and just for the people watching, I was looking to make sure I was talking into the right side of the microphone. I've made that mistake before, so I call myself a tech guy, but I've made lots of tech issues. Honestly, we could be talking to ourselves. The last 2 episodes, I messed up technically, and it really pissed me off. So hopefully this one went well. And if there's any feedback you guys have, email us. You won't, but anyways.
Yeah, they never do.
Hit us up, Twitter, Instagram, however else you want to get in touch with us.
Do we want to throw our Twitter handles out there?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm at Toasty0024. It's just like it sounds, just spelled the way it sounds.
Yeah, and what about you, Zam?
Now that I'm back in this city, I'm at Van City Zam. I was at Van City Zam before that.
I was
both
at
on
Montreal
Twitter.
City Zam before that. No, okay.
No, Van City Zam on Twitter and Instagram. So if you feel free to get in touch and share your comments about the show, and and if you need a hockey player.
Mine's probably the hardest one because my name is hard to spell and it sounds weird. But anyways, at Shaheed Devji, it's just my full name. You can search it. It's somewhere. So Canucks Twitter, we'll try and be a part of it this year. And if you are, would love to read some of your comments. Anyways.
Thanks for listening.
Okay. Bye-bye.